Okay, so today we're starting our grid. And you should have your paper up in front of you and your ruler. The grid is going to look, it's going to have this kind of format. This is a very dark drawing. I use the ebony pencil to show, to give you guys a really clear image of what your grid will look like. You're going to want to aim to have a lighter pencil where you have markings like this so you can easily erase it. We're going to use this grid to transfer proportions from your image onto your final piece of paper, and it's going to make it a lot easier to do your contour drawing, to shape out those shadows. So the first step that you want to do is you want this grid to be 2 inches by 2 inch squares. So you want to take your ruler and be mindful that at the end of your ruler, the 0 is not exactly at the very end. So make sure that your paper aligns with the 0 and not the end of your ruler. And I know this is really hard to see, but your next step is going to be counting up to the 2 inch line and making a dot. And then you keep going on to the 4 inch line and making a dot. So you do 2 inches by 2 inches, all the way along the edge of your paper. And well, the 12 inch should be at the very end, so that you shouldn't have to mark the 12 inch. And you're going to want to do that at your top of your paper too, so make sure that 0 mark is aligned at the very end of your paper. Give yourself some space to do those dots, because these are where we're going to use for our line mark. It's going to help us see where we're going to put our lines. So, and then you're going to have to move your ruler again. Just make sure that your 0 tick mark is lined up on that last dot on the top of your paper. And you should have this end, at the very end of your edge of your paper, should be at the 6th tick mark. So after you're done creating these dots with your ruler, you're going to have to move your ruler over in order to finish the rest of the dots. So make sure your 0 lines up with this dot right here, and the end of your paper meets the number 6. And then continue making the 2 inch dot. So you're going to want to start number 2 again, 4, and 6 will be at the very end. Give you a moment to catch up. So the next step is doing the same thing on the bottom. And what we're going to do eventually, after we're done making these tick marks, is we're going to connect the dots, basically. But remember, you want your marks to be at least 2 inches apart. It's critical that you get the right measurement, so then you have unity across your whole piece. And on the bottom, you'll get to that point where you're going to run out of ruler, so you're going to have to repeat, putting that 0 on that last dot and having the 6 at the very edge of your paper. So then you can continue making those dots across. Okay, so I'm going to have to make an adjustment here. Here's an example, because I was a bit off, so my dots aren't going to line up. So I made little lines instead of dots in order to verify that these are the correct measurements. So the next step will be taking your ruler and lining them across. Make sure that your dots are aligned. Make sure your ruler's straight. Mark very lightly as you do this. The only reason that my stuff's going to end up looking darker is A, that I'm using an ebony pencil, and I'm purposely making it look darker so then you can see it better. You're going to want to connect your lines here all the way across from your paper. And your pencil might come off the edge of your paper. That's okay. Just before you leave, just take an eraser and erase those marks off. They will come off. Don't fret. It's okay. See, I have some marks coming off right now that I'm going to have to erase when I'm done. But I'd rather you get your lines in there first before you start cleaning up those marks. So when you're done, your paper should look like this. And then we'll move on to the next step. I'll give you about 30 more seconds, and then I'm going to move on to the next step. I'm also going to try and have this video uploaded onto the website. I think the last video didn't upload because it was really, really long. So I apologize if you guys went to the website and tried to view it. So the next step, Jordan, is you want to line your ruler up with your first line. Give yourself some space so then you can make a dot on that line. Have your 0 at the very edge of the paper, because if you don't, your measurements will be off. And the 12 should be at the very end of your paper. And measure off by 2 inches again. So 1, 2, and you put a dot. 3, 4, put a dot. You want to keep doing this on every single line, or every other line. Because if you put it on every single line, that's going to take too much time. This will help you go across the paper to measure. I've tried personally to just do it by freehand. I highly suggest you not doing that, because I myself ran into the problem of trying to get my measurement straight, and my lines ended up being crooked and awkward and going uphill or downhill. And it's really going to frustrate you if you don't do like every other line, or maybe every 2 lines, because the ruler is so short, it's not going to end up lining up right. Make sure your 0 is lined up at the edge of your paper. Sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. And then we end up not noticing that it's not in the right area. So your paper should look like this. Kind of, if you ever seen one of those, I don't know if you've seen one of these before, but they have strings and they have droplets that go down the string. It's like an oil lamp. It's really pretty. The droplets go down the vinyl string, and it looks like a waterfall almost. You want it to kind of look like those dots going down those strings. Every other string. If you do every single string, it's going to take way too much time. So once you're done with that, this side of the paper, you want it to be just like the other side of the paper, kind of like algebra. You want both sides to be dealt with the same way. So at this very edge of the paper, in order to get these dots to connect thoroughly throughout your whole piece, is you want to make those 2-inch tick marks at the very end. So then you know exactly where you want your ruler to end when you're making your line. And once you're done with that, I know that some of you are almost done. You should basically take your ruler and you line up the edges and you create the lines just like you did from top to bottom, but now you do it from side to side. Remember why you're doing this, do it lightly, because later on when we're done doing our contour drawing, we're actually going to end up erasing these guys. Because these are just general guidelines. Has anyone here played Battleship? This is what we're kind of going to do with this grid, is when we do our actual contour line drawing, we're going to create a grid on our image as well. And we're basically going to kind of play Battleship and figure out where the shapes go in which square. When you're done, your piece should look like this. So you're going to turn your paper portrait style to the landscape. At the top number, you're going to write, I mean at the top corner of your square, you're going to write 1, 2. And you want them along the very top of your paper. You're going to get all the way to 6. That's what you want. This is going to be a 6x9 grid. So at the very top of your paper, you're going to want to write those numbers. And at the edge, you're going to start of your grid. You're going to start once again, but you're going to do letters. Instead of doing 1, you're going to do A. B, C, and you're just going to go all the way down to the alphabet, and you should end up with I at the very end.